Hey, this is Missy.
And this is April.
And this is our podcast, Sheila and the Gig. All right, welcome. Thank you for listening. Each week, of course, we present and explore our own Sheila and the Gig, a woman whose strength, perseverance has led her to greatness, who empowers us, inspires us, and it could be somebody you've heard of, maybe somebody you haven't heard of, maybe somebody you've heard of, you should just know more about them. So that's what we're doing today, and we're super excited because we actually have two very special guests with us, and they're going to talk about something very powerful. It's an amazing play, actually a very powerful and provocative play that's going to be opening in Burbank for you Southern Californians. It's called For Women in Red by Indigenous playwright Laura Shamas. And these are based on real life scenarios, although these are fictional Sheilas, I'm going to call them fictional Sheilas within this play. These are courageous, resilient Native American women who, against the odds, search for missing and murdered relatives and friends. And, you know, missing and murdered Indigenous women is an epidemic, and it is the struggle that their families and communities are facing. So to be heard and find justice is very real. And For Women in Red speaks to that collective effort to address it. And we want to thank, of course, the Victory Theater as well for their commitment and willingness to feature such an important production. So with no further ado, this brings us to our special guests today, Jeanette Harrison and Jehnean Washington. So
Hello and welcome.
Welcome.
We understand that this production is actually completely staffed and performed by Indigenous women. Is that true?
Almost entirely staffed, but definitely cast 100% with Indigenous women, and it is also led by Indigenous women. Playwright Laura Shamas, who's a member of the Chickasaw Nation. Me, I'm a descendant from the Onondaga Nation, and the cast, including the fabulous Jeannean Washington. Good morning. Good morning.
That's great. Well, we'd love to know a little bit about each of you independently and a little bit about your heritage and also how you came to this project.
Well, good morning. I'm Jeannean Washington. I am one of the actors in the show. I play the role of Marie. Now, personally, I am from the Yuchi, Seminole, and Shoshone Nations, from the Hodogulgi clan. My traditional name is Inichida. I started working on this production, I believe it was 4 years ago. And It was a play on Zoom at that point, as kind of a staged reading on Zoom. And then, you know, we took it through the different levels. And the last time I performed it was at the Autry, yes, in Griffith Park. And we did a stand-up staged reading, which was part of a play festival. And it was received very well. At that time, I played the role of Linda. So this is my first time changing roles within the play, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm so happy to be here. I've loved this play from the first moment I started working on it, the first moment I read it. It just touched something very deeply inside. And so I've so happy to be at this stage right now with it.
Yes, thank you.
There's so much joy in the new play process. As Jeannean mentioned, she started off as one role. And I have to say, I think that one of the greatest joys for a playwright and for a director in working on new plays is when something clicks and you get it. And we have had amazing actors every step of the way, but it wasn't really until we put Jeannean in the role of Marie that we really understood, that's your Marie.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, I tell you, taking on the role of Marie was terrifying to me, because she's very complex and she has lots of layers. And, you know, she's kind of scary sometimes to unfold. And so I really had to confront a lot of things as an actor, you know, just investigate a lot of different layers of this character that were really deep and really a little bit scary to touch, but I'm so glad I did because she's such a beautiful individual at the end of it. And I'm very grateful to have this role now.
Yeah. And I mean, how cool too that you've had the opportunity to play more than one role in this play. That has to be interesting too.
It is. It's fantastic. Once again, I'm committed to this story. So,
So important.
I'm really happy to be here. And yes, it is important and it needs to be seen and heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
And I just have to say so much gratitude to Delane Studi, who is a member of the Cherokee Nation, and she's also the artistic director of Native Voices, which is in residence at the Autry. It's the only professional theater company that is exclusively devoted to developing and producing and supporting Native playwrights.
Wow.
And this play actually started as a 10-minute play in one of their festivals.
Oh,
I
my
think it was in
gosh.
2019. And then there was a theater company that saw it, Transformation Theater in Washington, D.C., and reached out and said, hey, if you do a full-length version of this, we would so be interested in that.
Oh, wow.
And so I believe that was the impetus. You'd have to ask Laura to be sure. I hate to speak for her, but I believe that was the impetus for developing into a full-length play. And then Native Voices just demonstrating their incredible commitment to the playwrights and the stories that they foster. They then put this play in their 2-week workshop festival. So we got to workshop for 2 weeks.
Oh,
We
that's
performed it.
amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. What a great opportunity. And Jeanette, while you're at it, will you tell us a little bit more about like yourself as a director and
How you came to the project.
a little bit about your heritage? We want to hear it all. Yes.
Okay, so how I came to the project, I first met Laura, I think in 2003. I'd have to really double check the dates, but I was the casting director for a play called Pistachio Stories. It was a new play, a short play that was part of the Reorient Festival at Golden Thread Productions, a Middle Eastern theater company, the nation's premier Middle Eastern theater company, along with Silk Road. Golden Thread is resident in San Francisco.
Okay.
And so we have worked together all over the West Coast.
That's great. That's great.
And so I directed a play of hers. She was part of a playwright residency that I ran. And she's just one of the kindest people that I have ever been in a room with. She would be one of my Sheilas for sure. She is so amazing. She's had such a long and wonderful career.
Maybe we'll have to interview her as well.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
Okay. We'll add it to the list for sure. Yeah. That's great. And where are you from originally? Tell us about your heritage a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So my family comes from New York State.
Okay.
My family's Onondaga. I am not enrolled. My grandmother's parents were both Onondaga, but we only have paperwork on her father, not her mother.
Yes.
In the Onondaga, citizenship and clan comes through the mom. So we're matrilineal, and it's very exciting that we are. In the 1970s, the Onondaga Nation rejected the federal government's use of blood quantum and went back to our traditional ways of defining membership. So, it's a bummer for my family because, the paperwork at the time wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I am very lucky and very fortunate in that I know who I am and I have
absolutely
access to ceremony and to my traditions, and I just feel very blessed. And I think, in the Haudenosaunee, there's a saying of like, you're born who you are for a reason. And I feel that this place that I hold, this identity that I hold, is one that gives me greater compassion than I think I would have if I was a fully enrolled citizen.
Huh, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
I absolutely have to agree because I'm also a mixed heritage.
Yes.
I not only have my native blood, and I come from the house of Nagunaguji'onaya, the storyteller, but I also, I have European heritage and I have African American heritage that I am very proud of. And so the way my grandmother raised me is that we don't look at people through those kinds of eyes, through blood quantum and paperwork and all that. That was never our traditional way.
Right.
And that was a wonderful upbringing for me because I had such a broader perspective coming up and the ability to just walk circumspectly and to see people's lives as a whole and to appreciate everyone and embrace everyone and every part of myself.
So important.
And I'm just so happy about that. I'm so proud of that. And I just thank her for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, grandmother.
Oh, thank you, Grandma. We're actually going to have an episode called My Grandmother, so you'll have to write something for us and send it in. We're going to have people tell us stories about their grandma, so yeah, for sure. So the red handprint, I wanted to talk about that very iconic symbol for a minute and what that means and how that, came to be. If you guys can just shed a little light on that.
Well, the red handprint is the symbol of a woman being silenced in blood and violence. It's also representative of the blood that's been spilled by our ancestors. So the red handprint goes across, the woman's mouth, which is, one of the themes of our story, because those that are missing and or murdered, we are bringing their voices forward. They need to be heard, and they need to have ceremony, and they need to be represented. And we believe that they can hear us.
Absolutely. Do you want to add anything to that?
That was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Well
really
put,
was.
for sure. Yes. And just to give some statistics on some of this, because it's pretty shocking. I have to say it's very shocking. And I don't think enough people really know about what's going on. The National Crime Information Center reports that in 2016, there were 5,712 reports of missing American Indian and Alaskan Native women and girls throughout the U.S. Department of Justice's federal missing person database, but only 116 cases were logged. And that is shocking. That is absolutely shocking.
2%. Only 2% of cases.
Oh my. It's just, And more than 4 out of 5 Indigenous women have experienced violence. More than half Indigenous women experience sexual violence. 48.8% of Indigenous women have been stalked in their lifetime. Indigenous women are 1.7 times more likely than Anglo women to experience violence. Indigenous women are 2 times more likely to be raped than Anglo women. And murder rate of Indigenous women is 3 times higher than Anglo-American women. It's the 3rd leading cause of death for Native women.
I would also add that on some Native reservations, the murder rate is up to 10 times higher.
Are you kidding me? 10 times higher.
Right. And with, all those percentages of the Native women who have experienced sexual violence, like 90% of those experience violence from non-tribal members.
Yes. And do you want to speak a little bit to why that is happening?
Well, we do address this, and one facet of that is the man camps that are placed near Indian country. And man camps are, temporary gangs of workers that oil companies bring in to work in those areas to extract, minerals and oil. And the companies make a lot of money off of those man camps, and they kind of run them like hunting lodges. And the men are very well aware that they can go onto tribal lands and commit a crime, but they won't be prosecuted for it. So it's almost like their hunting ground.
Right.
And Jeanine just touched on this. One of the issues is the jurisdiction. And so there have been court cases to try to clean up jurisdiction and restore jurisdiction. But as it stands right now, if you are not a tribal member and you commit a crime on tribal lands, it falls into this gray zone of enforcement. And so there's this scene in our play where there is a woman who has disappeared near the man camps, and nobody bothers to actually search the man camp because the tribal police don't have jurisdiction because it's not on the reservation. It's right next to the reservation. And then the sheriff's office says, oh, well, we don't have the resources to search. And part of the reason that the local police don't prioritize these cases is because, sometimes it then goes to federal jurisdiction. And then the feds don't want to be bothered because they don't have the resources to come out to these remote areas to investigate and then prosecute.
Right.
And so everybody just knows that there's no point.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And like you said, I mean, my understanding is that these men target these areas because they know they won't be held responsible because of the jurisdiction.
It's a perfect setup. It's almost designed for this abuse.
Right. Exactly. It's like organized crime.
Yeah.
And it really is.
Yeah. Wow. It's just shocking. Yeah.
And then there's also why is it that our society allows this to happen?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
You know, because it's not just a matter of these jurisdictional issues. There's also this callousness. Like, I'll just talk about one case. Misty Upham was an actress, so you would think that she would be high profile and she would be prioritized. Her family reported her missing, and the police said, oh, she probably just left. She packed a bag. She didn't want to be here anymore. Maybe she went back to LA. She didn't want to hang out with her family anymore. And her family is like, no, this is her behavior. This is how she normally behaves.
Yeah.
And this is out of the ordinary. We are worried about her.
Of course.
And the family had to organize the searches for her.
Oh
my
my.
goodness.
It's just inexcusable. It's
And her
inexcusable.
family was the one that found her body.
Are you kidding
I
me?
was about to ask if she was
my
ever found. Oh my
God.
God.
Was she found near the area?
Well, she was found in a wooded area.
Okay.
You know, she kind of gone off the edge of a drop off. And the authorities made it seem like she committed suicide.
I knew that was coming when you said that.
But
Oh,
right.
God,
based
of
on
course.
how she was found and the wounds on her, it was clear that that was not the case, that it
Oh
was
my
homicide.
gosh. Wow. Just shocking. Yeah. You want to say yes?
Aside from raising awareness, and I'm so grateful to both of you for the work you're doing and for being here today to share about it, is there anything else that we should know in terms of activism and how we can help mitigate or address this horrible, horrible situation that sounds out of control?
I think there are a lot of things to do, and there are a lot of Indigenous women activists who have been working on this issue for a long time. Many of them become activists because somebody in their family goes missing. I personally point people to the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, which is a wonderful place to get involved, to learn more, to make donations. It's a nonprofit organization. And the scale and scope of this is so massive. Having one place to start so you can dive in is, I think, really key, because it can be very overwhelming.
Yes,
it
most
feels
certainly.
overwhelming.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think people are really not aware that all this is happening.
They're not.
They're really not.
I had heard, I mean, honestly, myself, I feel like I do a lot of women's history, a lot of, and I'd heard, vaguely about it, but not, but I really kind of had to delve in once we're going to be talking to you. And both April and I were just shocked. Just shocked. Like, why don't people know about this? This is just, it's horrifying. Everybody should know about this.
Absolutely. I mean, human trafficking is huge in our country.
It
And
is.
if you look it up, I mean, unfortunately, our country is number one in the sale of child pornography and human trafficking. This affects everyone.
Yeah, of course it
Women,
does.
children, people everywhere have to be aware. They have to be conscientious about their surroundings, and it's unfortunate, but we do. And one of my Sheilas is, Peggy Flanagan.
Yes.
I think she's a Sheila for all of us. She's
That's
Sheila
a
for all
great
of us.
segue.
Yeah, this is great because we love that you're bringing us some Sheilas today, your own Sheilas. We're so excited to hear about them.
Along with Deb Howland.
Okay,
Let
okay,
us look at Deb Howland.
all right.
But one thing I did find that was really wonderful, talking about bringing awareness, one thing that Peggy Flanagan did was she created this Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives unit. When you say that word relatives, to me, that makes it so much more personal. I mean, there's the MMIW unit, which is wonderful. But when you say the word relatives, that's family.
Yes.
And we all have to look at each other like that. And one thing that particular unit, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives unit, has to help to bring awareness and to help raise funds in support of families looking for missing and or murdered loved ones, is they have license plates in the state of Minnesota that you can purchase, and a part of that goes towards supporting those families and helping to bring awareness. And it's got the logo on it of the woman with the red handprint across her mouth.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
We could adopt that in every state.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, think how much more awareness we could bring there.
Right.
Right.
And Peggy Flanagan was the lieutenant governor of Minnesota. That unit that Jeanine mentions is the first one in the nation.
That's right.
And then I think there's 6 other states that have followed suit and created their own.
Oh,
Wow.
And
there it is.
Wow. Look at that.
Yes.
I want that license plate.
Right now you have to move to Minnesota.
I guess so.
well, you can also lobby and advocate for it.
Yes,
in your own
here
state.
in
And-
California.
Whoa.
How much more would that do?
That would
Yes.
do a lot.
That's amazing.
And one of the reasons why I had chosen Peggy Flanagan, when there's so many women who have been working on this for decades, so many Indigenous women, I chose Peggy because she is from the area that our play takes place in. She's White Earth, which is up in northern Minnesota.
Okay.
And also, I really love the fact that she could have become the first Native female governor in the entire country.
Yeah.
First female governor of Minnesota.
Yes.
However, Peggy's story isn't over just because
No.
her boss didn't get promoted
Right,
to
right.
the vice presidency.
Right.
Peggy's career is just beginning.
Right.
She is an amazing, dynamic woman. She cares so much about her community. And I hope that we will be talking about Peggy Flanagan on her own rise to national office.
Oh, absolutely.
And I want to say, my other 2 Sheilas, among many others, are this lady right here,
Oh.
Jeanette Harrison, and Laura Shamas. What they do in telling our stories and how they are committed and how they take it everywhere, well, that speaks on its own. And I think they're just beginning.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I mean, you're both Sheilas. We're so delighted to have you both here sharing something so important.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Missy and I have noted a lot in our Sheilas who come from different walks of life, different eras, different histories, different origins, different causes and issues, is that women who become Sheilas are usually multi-talented, just forceful and dynamic, unstoppable, and both of you and the Sheilas you're bringing to us today all represent
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You just made me blush and kind
She is actually blushing.
I want to say that there's something really powerful about representation. You guys asked earlier about, what can people do to help bring light and to help change things. And there are numerous studies now that have been done by the Norman Lear Center, Reclaiming Native Truth by Illuminative, Dr. Stephanie Freiberg's research, and she's also an Indigenous researcher. Oh, she should be a Sheila. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Where they actually prove that bad representation of Native people is more harmful to Natives and Native communities than no representation. And they also show that content that is led and driven by Native creatives is more authentic and actually dispels a lot of the myths and stereotypes around Native people, and it leads to better perceptions on the general community of Native communities. So if you're watching television, you can actually help by watching stuff that's created by Sierra Tella Ornelas, who's a Navajo storyteller. She was the first Native showrunner of a TV show, Rutherford Falls.
Wow.
There's also a Reservation Dogs by Sterling
Yes.
Show.
Fantastic.
There's
Fantastic show.
Spirit Rangers. There's Molly of Denali. There's all this Native-led, Native-driven content. So if you're looking at content and you're like, oh, look, Native people are in this, let's see who is leading it, who's writing those episodes of television, who's directing that movie,
Right.
and support Native-led projects, because that's what's really going to shift the narrative. To go back to the Sheila conversation,
Yes.
We as storytellers think that the work that we does matter, but it's so powerful to know that the research shows that literally telling stories can change lives. It can save lives. And so with that, I think that my Sheilas have to be Jeannean Washington, Carolyn Dunn,
Yes.
Harriet Felice, Zoe Reyes, and all of the actors who have played roles in this story to get us to this point.
Wow.
Because what these women have to go through and to do and to live in to tell these stories with authenticity
Yes.
is powerful.
Yes.
And it carries a real burden.
Of course.
And it takes artists with enormous heart and vulnerability and incredible strength to be able to carry those storytelling responsibilities.
I can imagine.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Definitely. Yeah. Did you want to tell us a little bit about Deb Holland today as well?
Gosh.
I heard that you're going to be telling us a little bit about Deb Holland. Bring it.
Auntie Deb actually ran for lieutenant governor of New Mexico at one point, and there's talk that she may be running for governor now that she's
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's exciting.
So there's something to watch for from Deb Holland.
Yes.
Speaking of amazing Native women who are national leaders, but Deb Holland was one of the first Native women to be elected to the U.S. Congress, and she and Sharice Davids were elected in the same year. And then Deb Holland went on to become the first ever Native woman to serve in the cabinet.
Yes,
She's
amazing.
She served under President Joe Biden.
Yay.
And, we give her a big shout out in the play because of the work that she did to establish the Missing and Murdered Unit. You brought up the statistics earlier about only 2% of cases are logged. The Missing and Murdered Unit is specifically meant to address that and to get law enforcement working together.
Thankfully, this is so important. I mean, it's such a frustration because it's you have the jurisdiction, as you said before. Nobody can touch if you're not from the tribe and then you enter, you can't be held under jurisdiction by the tribe, correct? And then also, with the state coming in, they can't get involved in the jurisdiction for the tribe, correct?
Well, there's a thing about jurisdiction where because Native nations are actually sovereign nations,
Right.
we have a treaty-to-treaty, a government-to-government relationship
Right.
with the United States.
Right.
And the U.S. Constitution actually says that the state's got no business policing our territory. Our territory is sovereign, and if there's an issue, it has to go to the federal government.
Sure.
So that's also part of what's tied up in these jurisdictional issues.
So the federal government really is what's going to help the situation. The federal government has to get involved because of this.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, the problem then becomes they don't have to. It depends on our leadership and
Yes.
the support to do that.
Yes. Yes.
I don't want to ask my next question. With changing administrations, do we anticipate a change in this new program that Deb started?
There's no way to know. But hopefully, if we can bring awareness and we can make it so that this is not something that can quietly be eliminated, my hope is that we can keep it going because it is so needed. It is so needed. We have barely begun to see the effects of what this program can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, we can't ignore it.
No.
Like I said earlier, this is affecting everyone. The numbers of children from across the board, from across cultures in this country, women and people going missing. This is an epidemic, and this is a big moneymaker for the people that are doing it. And it's not going to stop because money doesn't sleep unless we do something about it. I mean, how valuable are your family members and your children? You have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
They can't be replaced.
No.
Right.
No.
And we've got to protect each other
Right.
with everything.
Right.
We cannot allow this. And we cannot allow our younger generations who have knowledge of this to be complacent and to just be apathetic because now it's just part of the normal vernacular.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're the future.
They're the future.
And if this is normal to them, we're kind of in trouble.
Right.
If we don't teach them to get up and inspire them to get up and to take action and to turn the tide on this thing.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on this play. We've both been working on this play for 4 years. And every time we touch the script again, Laura double checks the statistics. And it is so disturbing that the statistics keep going up.
Right. And let me ask you about that. Speaking of that, because I was doing some research, and really the only viable research I could find about it was from 2016. And I thought, that's a long freaking time ago. Shouldn't we have like statistics that are, more relevant and more current? And right? And that's another part of this, I'm assuming. That's exactly what I thought. This is all part of it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is that natives are so frequently left out of the data. And there are some great Sheilas who are working on this as well. There's Abigail Echohawk, who specifically is working on counting us in medical data. So frequently, especially for urban natives, we're not even counted in the data. And it has we found during COVID, it had tremendous impacts on the ability to get funding.
Of course.
But also, like, there was that recent kerfluffle about, there was some, like, ABC News poll or Fox News poll, some major news outlet did a poll, an exit poll of voters, and they're like, 69% of natives voted for the Republican candidate. And it was like, no, dude, you look at your samples. You maybe had 2 natives in these 20,000 people that you polled. If you really want the data, you need to go where native people live in order to get a statistically significant sample size.
Yes.
And when you do that, you see that 90% of natives voted blue, not red.
Right, right. Yes, important information. And, now that you're listening to this podcast and you're hearing about this, you can't ignore it. That's what I want to say to our listeners. You can't ignore something like this once you hear it. I don't think you can. So I think everybody should get involved, do some more research. There's so much information out there now that you know, and you can learn how to get involved, just to be aware, to spread awareness. It's just so imperative to this situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And we applaud your efforts, all of them.
Absolutely.
Including this production, which, by the way, if anybody is interested in seeing it, opening is?
We start previews on January 10th, and we officially open on January 17th, and there's a little party afterwards on the 17th if you come down.
Wow! And if anybody wants $2 off, when you go to the website, thevictorytheater.org, type in the code VTC, as in Victory Theater Company, I'm guessing, you can get $2 off your ticket. And the production is offering free tickets for anyone who's Native or Indigenous under the code SCODEN, SKODEN. I shouldn't say everyone. There is a cap on those, so don't hesitate, don't wait. And if you want more information about tickets, call 818-841-5421. Did I just butcher that?
What is that?
What is that?
And all the natives are like, oh, where's she from?
She's from New York. Please help me. What is the proper pronunciation? Can you tell us?
We say Skoden.
Skoden. Okay, Skoden.
SCODEN.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Let's go then.
Oh, I like that. I like
Perfect.
Skoden. Let's go then. I like that. Yeah.
Actually, there are natives in New York, but I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, some members of my family were born in Brooklyn. We are there. And in fact, Mohawks built most of the skyscrapers in New York City.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
See, these are amazing facts. I think anywhere you go, right? I mean, come on.
That's right. You know, and Uchis were Eastern Woodlands Nations originally.
Wow. Wow. Pretty amazing.
We are everywhere.
Yes, and so important. And Yeah, we're going. We're coming.
Yes.
We're coming to the play. We're going to be there on the 10th.
We're being, yes.
The preview. We're going to be at the
preview.
preview. So we're so excited to come to the preview. And then we can talk about it some more once we see it, of course.
Definitely. And by the way, just to mention again, the title of the play is For Women in Red, written by Laura Shamas and directed by
Jeanette Harrison.
Yay!
and starring
Jeanine Washington, myself, Carolyn Dunn,
Harriet Felice, and Zoe Reyes.
Awesome. Yay. Yay. Well, we're so delighted that you spent this time with us today. Thank you so much for all your insight and just all your transparency. And we really appreciate all the work you're doing. It's so important. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being
so much.
Sheila's.
Oh my gosh, I'm too embarrassed to speak after that.
Thank you all so much for having us.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for listening, everybody. We're so happy that you could join us. We hope you'll come see For Women in Red. You definitely should. I think you have a responsibility. Come see this amazing production. It's so important.
And share it with everybody you know.
Please do. Please do. And if you can't come see it, maybe there's a production in your neck of the woods. Maybe look it up. You never know. Maybe you can get one going. But you can definitely get involved in this cause either way. And again, so important to do so. Thank you. Thank you to both of our guests. Thank you for listening. And until next time.
Send us your Sheilas and send us your comments, please.
Yes. Love ya. Peace out.
Sheila,